When creating evaluations, most of us often go straight into assessing the actual training session. You might ask questions like, was the content relevant to your work? Or was the trainer inspiring? And while this is good questions to ask if you want to gather feedback from the actual training session, it doesn't really tell you that much about the actual results from the training. In this video, you will learn why it's crucial to always define the purpose of your evaluation beforehand, and I will share 3 tips on what to think of when you're creating evaluations. Tip 1. Always define the purpose beforehand. When you're creating an evaluation, start by asking yourself the question, what job do I want this evaluation to do? Should it measure acquired knowledge, or should it actually gather feedback from the training session? Depending on your answer, the evaluation will have a completely different format and content. Let's say that you want to measure acquired knowledge. Then you might conduct a knowledge test. But if you want to gather feedback from the training session, then you'll do a more traditional evaluation. Both great tools to work with, but the jobs they do are completely different. Tip number 2. You don't have to label your evaluation as evaluation. You can use follow-ups. So let's say that you have a learning journey, and in your learning journey, you let your participants create an action plan. And to that action plan, you've designed follow-ups. Then, in a follow-up, you could ask the question, in your action plan, you said that this was a small step that you should do in order to get you closer to your goal. Have you done it? That question could serve as an evaluation question because it will give you valuable data on the fact that have your participants started to do things differently or not? Have they actually started to change their behavior and work towards their goal? So use follow-ups and use the questions in follow-ups as evaluation questions because they have a lot of good data that you could work with. And while we're at talking about assessing and evaluating behavioral change, a great tool to work with is self-assessments. So implement self-assessments in your learning journey and in your evaluations. That will give you a great tool to actually measure behavior change. So just let your participants do a self-assessment before the training, then maybe straight again after the training session, and then maybe a few weeks after the last session. Because the self-assessment will give you valuable and very insightful data on if they actually are doing things differently in relation to their goal. Of course, this won't give you the entire truth. I mean, self-assessments and follow-ups, they have some drawbacks. The biggest one might be that participants aren't realistic in their answers, but they still will give you a lot of valuable data. So, to sum it all up, 3 tips to think of when you're creating your evaluations. Always define the purpose. Ask yourself the question, what job should this evaluation do before you start to creating it? Then, be creative. You don't have to name your evaluation questions you don't have to tell them that this is an evaluation question. Use the follow-ups in your action plan or similar to gather data on how they are actually doing and if they have started to do things differently. And then, third but not least, implement self-assessment. That's a great tool to measure behavior change.